Alright guys, this is the tutorial on making selections in Photoshop. And if you want to get good with Photoshop, if you want to get better at Photoshop, you need to know how to make good selections in order to work with your images. Most things that you do in Photoshop require you to make good selections. So let's start. We're going to look at three different techniques, three different ways of making selections. So open up your tutorials folder and you're going to look for these 6 files. We got fisherman, ghetto, jungle, monkey, nice car, and water. We're going to start with the most easiest way to make a selection. We're going to open up fisherman and we're going to open up with Photoshop. CS6 is the version we're using here. And you're going to get this photo that opens up, and I'm just going to go full screen. If we want it to expand the entire window, press Command 0, and that will fill it up to fill the entire workspace. All right, so we've got the image that we want to work on, and you notice in this picture that we've got a very bright white background. And that's going to make our life a lot easier in order for us to use this in another picture. All right, so in this case, what we're trying to do is make a selection of the white area so that we can eliminate that and use this guy, maybe even the boat as well, in another photo. So first things first, we go to our layers palette. And if it's not showing up, you got to go to Window, Layers, in order to get that to show. And you'll notice that the layers palette has a lock next to it. All right, that means that we can't delete our background. We can't get rid of this white in the back because we're just going to replace it with the foreground color. So we want this to go clear. We want this to go to transparency. So in order to do that, we double click the background layer and we'll have this window that pops up. Now it doesn't matter what name you give it here, just hit OK, and you'll notice now that that lock has disappeared on the layer. The first technique, the first way we're going to look at removing this background is called the magic wand technique. And this is done really easily using the magic wand tool. It's the 4th one down. Sometimes you'll see this icon instead, but you want to hold down on there and find the magic wand tool. Now, the magic wand tool is great in the way that it works. It looks for colors that are similar and allows you to make selections of those colors. Because we've got a background here that has very similar colors, we can easily click those colors to get a selection. A couple of things. Up at the top here, we have our options for this tool. And you'll notice over here that it says tolerance. And the tolerance is how close the colors have to be to one another in order to become selected. I'm going to set that fairly low for this picture. I'm going to set it down to about 10 and we'll see how we do with that. Also, another thing that's important to note is up at the top here as well. We can make a new selection every time we click, or we can add to our selection every time we click. Meaning that every time we click, we're adding to what we've done previously. We can take away or we can intersect. Personally, I only use these two, and I find that add to selection is really useful. So we're going to click that, and we're going to go back to our picture here. Now, you'll notice how this works. When I click somewhere on this background, I don't know how well that's showing up, but you'll notice that we have what we call the marching ants that appear around our picture when we click. What Photoshop has done is it has gone and checked to see how close these colors are together, and it's created a selection, and that's what we're seeing. The marching ants is the selection that it has created based on the colors that we picked. Now because we're on add to selection, we can now go and pick another part of the picture, like this area that got missed. And every time we click, it is adding to our selection, meaning that it's not taking away what we clicked before, it's simply adding more to it. So we're telling it, okay, we want you to pick this white or light background, but we also want you to pick these parts as well. So we're going to keep clicking here, and we're trying to get as much of this area selected as possible. Now I'm not going to go crazy here. I'm going to just select the majority of the light areas. Maybe we'll deal with this basket after, but I will click in here as well for now too. And I just want to show you what happens when we go and delete the white that we're selecting here, the light areas. All right, I'm going to hit delete on the keyboard. And you'll notice that what happens in Photoshop is it becomes a checkerboard pattern. And the checkerboard pattern tells us that those areas of the document are now clear. The checker pattern means transparent. What I'm going to do here really quickly down at the bottom of the layers palette is I'm going to add a new layer, and it's this new page icon, and that'll add a new layer. I'm going to move this layer down below the first layer, which is layer 0 now. I've got that sitting below, and I'm going to go and fill this layer with a color. In this case, excuse me, in this case with this particular picture, black would be a good one to see how much of the light areas is remaining. So we're going to go to Edit, we're going to go to Fill, and when this menu pops up, we're going to choose black, and we're going to say OK. So you can see here that Photoshop has not done that great of a job. It looks great when you see the transparency, but it's not so good when you actually see a different color behind it. So we have to fix this up. Now there's a couple ways we can do that. We could keep clicking with the magic wand, which is really time consuming, or we can just take the eraser tool and go and erase. Oh, first we got to select that top layer again. We can go and erase the areas that still remain. Now, a couple of things about when you're working with the eraser tool. I should have zoomed in on that. That's this tool right here. When you're working with the eraser tool, you want to make sure that you're using a brush size that isn't too large. You don't want to erase too much of an area at once. And you'll notice that all of your options for your brush size, no matter what you're using, whether it's the paintbrush or the eraser or whatever, are all up here. So I can open this menu up. Okay, whoops. I can open this menu up. I can take a look at my options. I can change the brush size here. I can change the hardness of the brush here if I want as well. The shortcut for this is the bracket key. So if you look on your keyboard and you see the P key, okay, to the right of that key are two bracket keys. And if I use those keys, I can enlarge or decrease the size of the brush that I'm using. That's really handy when I want to go and I want to erase areas. Sometimes I want to get in close, and other times I want to get large areas. So I have to change the size of my brush. So I would go along here with a larger brush, and I would clean up all these areas that I missed with the magic wand. Now this is the problem. The magic wand works great when you have images that have solid colors in the background, but not so good when you got all these little areas that, little areas of white or whatever that are left behind, areas that are close in color. This would take much more work to go around and clean up all those little areas of white that are left behind. All right, so if I wanted to look for the background to be removed properly and to be removed well, I would have to go in here and spend the time erasing and removing all these little areas that the magic wand missed. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the video, I'm going to clean this up as best as I can, and I'm going to come right back once this is done. Okay, you'll notice that the image has been fixed up a bit. I've gone over it with the eraser and cleaned up some of the white areas that were left behind. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually put this into a different image just to see how it would look after removing the background in a different photograph. So I'm just going to pull Photoshop over, and I'm going to get back to my folder that we had here for Wednesday tutorials. We're going to open up water.jpg. And I think it's really important to note that the images that I'm using here are images that I found online. I take no responsibility for the images themselves. This is only for instructional, educational purposes. So with Fisherman, we're going to go to layer 0 where we've got the guy sitting on. I can even turn off layer 1 just to check to see how the transparency looks. On layer 0, I'm going to use the Move tool, and that's the very top tool. Shortcut is V. And I'm going to move him out of this picture by clicking and holding. All right, I haven't let go of my mouse here. I'm clicking and holding, bringing it up to the Water Picture tab, which I just opened up, and still holding it. I'm not letting it go yet. Now I'm going to let it go, and now he's in that picture. Now, the plan was to put him down in the corner here somewhere. All right, and I'm just going to press Command-T is the shortcut to change the size of the image you're working on. So that's Command-T. And you'll notice when I do Command-T that I can stretch or move him however I want. Most times, you don't want the person to get stretched out of proportion because then they're going to look weird. So you press Command-T and you hold Shift. Hold Shift as you scale it down, just like this. All right, and when you're happy with the size of it, you're going to hit Return on the keyboard to lock it in. Now you can see here that this does not look very good. All right, it doesn't look like he belongs because of the method, the technique that we've used here. Magic Wand is a very rough way of making a selection. However, like I said, if we used a picture that had more of an even background, we could click it all in at once and remove it very quickly using the Magic Wand. Now in here, this boat now that's part of that picture looks really weird. Proportionally it doesn't work, so we can take the eraser, we can get rid of that. Okay, and there we go. Now we've got him as part of that scene. Like I said, this is a very basic way. This is probably the easiest way of doing it. It'll work for you, but the result may not look very good. So save this. We're going to save this file. I'm just going to go File, Save As here. Whoops. File, Save As. I'm just going to put it to my desktop. I'm going to call it Water. It doesn't really matter what we call it as long as it gets turned in, and we're going to hit OK. First one saved. Now the next technique we're going to look at, in my opinion, it's better for certain types of pictures. All right, there's lots of ways to make selections in Photoshop, but this one just kind of makes sense. It makes sense what you're doing. So we're going to open up the file called nicecar.jpg, and we're going to get a picture of this car. All right, so there's the photo we want to work on, and we want to make a selection of this car. Now you'll notice in this photo, we don't have a consistently, even colored background. So Magic Wand's really not going to help us here. We'd have to click a million times just to get all of that. All right, so we're going to start off the same way. We're going to unlock the background by double clicking it. We're going to give it any name, it doesn't matter. We're going to hit OK. Background is now unlocked. This time we're going to zoom in. Remember, to get the picture to fill your page, press Command-0. All right, that's something you're going to use quite often in the course. Zoom in on the car itself. I'm going to start at the front of the car here. And we're going to use this little icon down at the bottom of the tools. Hopefully you can see where my cursor is. It's called the Quick Mask Mode button. We're going to click that. And nothing changes. When you click it, nothing happens. And you may ask, well, why do we do that? What Quick Mask does is it puts it into a sort of a painting mode. We're going to go and use the paintbrush, which is right here. Okay. And using the brackets that we learned earlier, we're going to shrink our brush size down. And we're going to start painting. Now, we're going to make sure that our foreground color, which is the color on top, is black. Okay, and we're going to start painting on the car. Now you're going to notice that the car starts to turn red as soon as you do that, but that's what it's supposed to do. Don't worry, it's not like you're painting on the car and it's going to be permanent. We're just painting a selection, and I'll explain how this works after. Also, another important thing is to go into your brush options here and just set the hardness to something like 80%, 90%, pretty high, and you'll get a much sharper edge. So do you see the difference there? This one, when you paint, you can really see that defined edge. If I go really soft to 0, I'll paint up here, you see that's got a very soft edge. All right, I want to bring that up to about 90, maybe even higher. I could go up to 100. I usually don't like going completely to 100 or completely to 0. I like having a softer edge. And we're going to paint over the entire vehicle. All right, we're going to just go slowly here and paint over the entire car. All right, so just take your time, and you want to have the entire car painted with this red color. I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to come back with my car fully painted. Okay, so we're back, and you can see that I have painted over the entire vehicle, and it's red now. You'll notice that every now and then I purposely messed this up here and paint it off. If that happens, I forgot to mention, but if that happens, you can just quickly, easily use the eraser tool and make sure that the red stays within the confines of the vehicle or whatever you're trying to paint. All right, so just touching that up. Now again, Command 0, just so I can see the entire vehicle. So that's great. Now we've gone and we've actually painted this red thing on the car, and it seems like, well, what was the point of that? The neat part about quick mask selections is that all I have to do now is click on that same icon we clicked at the beginning, and now what we have painted becomes a selection. Now, I really don't know the reason for this, but Photoshop actually selects the opposite of what we painted. All right, so it's actually selecting the background right now. In order for it to be selecting the proper part, the part that we painted, we're going to go to Select, and we're going to go to Inverse. And what that does is it reverses the selection, so now our selection is on the car and not on the background. We're next going to open up the file called Ghetto. And I thought this was kind of funny to put that beautiful, nice car in the ghetto. All right, this really classy scene right here. So we're going to go to our Nice Car tab. We're going to go to the Move tool, which again is the first tool. All right, that's the Move tool there. And we're going to do the exact same thing that we did with the last file. We're going to click and hold, and you'll see there goes the car. The car is moving. We're going to keep holding. Don't let go of the mouse. I'm going to bring it up into here, and we're going to drop it in the ghetto. And now we can do the same trick with Command T. We're going to scale it up. Now obviously things like shadows and all that, it's not going to match, but there we go, very quick and easy. Within a couple of minutes, we have a decent selection. Now if I would have went and spent more time, I could have made it perfect, but for the sake of the tutorial, that's not bad. And as you can see, we really quickly made a selection, and we were able to move that part of the picture into the next part. So let's into a different picture. Let's save that. All right, save that to your desktop. You can call whatever you want. I got it called Ghetto here, and I'm going to just save it. So that's saved. The last technique that we're going to look at involves kind of combining a few different techniques. It can be done just on its own, but we're going to look at combining a few techniques here. So in this case, open up the file called Monkey, and we're going to open that up there. Now here's an interesting thing. We got a monkey that has a pretty uniform green background. All right, so you might say, well, why not just do magic wand here? Well, you'll notice he's also got hair, which is really fine, and it's hard for the magic wand to go in between those hairs and select those hairs in order to get a good selection. So what we're going to do first off, this is how we always start when we're making selections and trying to remove backgrounds and that. We're going to unlock the background layer. We're going to double click and we're going to go to call it layer 0 and hit OK. All right, next what we're going to do is, well, we could use the magic wand just to get our base selection, our start of our selection, but we're not going to try to select everything just with the magic wand. All right, I'm going to start by clicking, and you'll notice that because our tolerance is still set low from before, we're going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up to about, let's try 30 as a start. And you'll notice again that that allows me to select more colors that are similar together in color. All right, so I'm going to keep on clicking. All right, I want to make sure I don't miss inside of his arms here, you know, in between his ears and his hands and that. All right, his head and his hands. We're going to try to get as much as we can here with the magic wand. And I'm just going to make sure I get as much of the background as I can as well. Click down here under his armpits. Okay, so that's not bad for a, you know, kind of a preliminary selection. Now, rather than deleting this part of the image, sorry about that, rather than going and hitting the delete key on the keyboard, this time what we're going to do is we're going to go to the bottom of the layers menu. And depending on how big this menu is, you might have to look for it right at the bottom or might be small. We're going to add a layer mask, which is this icon. It's the third from the left. Kind of looks like a rectangular donut. And you're going to click that. And what happens is the layer splits in two. All right, we've got our original picture here, and now we've got this black and white mask. That's what it's called. It's called a mask. That's been added. However, again, Photoshop does weird things here. It eliminated the monkey and not the background. So what we want to do is we want to invert this mask. Now this is going to be a little different. It's not a selection, so we're not going to go to select invert. We're going to actually invert the colors of the mask. So in order to do that, we're going to make sure the mask is selected. Okay, so we're selecting it, and you know it's selected because it's got kind of a bold border around it. Then we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, and we're going to go to Invert. And now you'll see that the monkey shows up nicely, and our mask has reversed. Now the way that masks work is anything on a mask that is black is hidden. Okay, and just a little trick here. We can look at our mask by holding Option on the keyboard. So just click the Option, hold Option, and click the mask. Here's the mask. So the parts that are black are hidden from view. The parts that are white are showing. All right, hold Option and click it again to bring it back. In order to be successful with a mask, what we need to do is we need to use the paintbrush tool. And again, we got to make sure that we're on the mask layer. Use the paintbrush and make sure that black is the color that you're painting with. You'll notice when you paint on the monkey, okay, I'm just doing the edges. If I'm painting with black, remember I am adding black to our mask layer, which means that we are hiding parts of the image. Okay, so as I paint with black, if I really want it to be extreme, there you go. Okay, I paint with black, I can totally erase any part of the picture I want, but I'm going to go really carefully here. Now, you might say, well, how is that any better than, let's say, using the eraser tool, for example? Well, let's say by accident, I'm painting along, and I paint into his arm like this. All right, I keep on working, I go ahead, and I don't realize till later that, oh man, I've erased an important part of the picture. Very quickly here, because it's a mask, and because I'm not actually erasing the image, I'm just hiding parts of it, I can press the X key on the keyboard to switch my colors. And now white becomes my foreground color. All right, you can see it's in front. Remember that black hides things on a mask, white brings them back. So I can actually just paint with white and bring that back. Now you can't do that with any other selection, all right? For most other ones, including Quick Mask and all, and Magic Wand, or using the eraser technique, you'd have to go back in your history and bring back those parts and do it all over again. All right, personally, I really like, this is my preferred method for making selections, is by using this this layer mask mode. Now, here's the cool thing, I think anyways. We're gonna go to the Move tool. All right, we're gonna make sure the Move tool is selected. Okay, that's the selection tool, the Move tool. And we're going to open up a jungle in Photoshop. So there's our jungle scene. Press Command 0 to enlarge it to fit the window. Go back to your monkey tab. Let's use the Move tool and let's drag him over to the jungle scene. Remember, clicking and holding. And we're going to let him go inside there. Now he's huge. So let's just move him over a bit and then do Command T. Remember to hold Shift as we scale down. And let's fit that monkey kind of in the middle of the picture here. He kind of belongs in this jungle scene. All right, and hit Enter or Return to make your transformations final. Now the cool thing about layer masks is that even though I've taken this file from another file, okay, I brought it from the monkey file and I put it into the jungle file, you'll notice that that mask that we added to it still follows it along. So, if we notice here that the mask needs some adjustments around the edges, we can go and paint with black and eliminate the parts that look funny, the parts that look weird. And in the end, we can end up with a really, really realistic, sorry, I said real way too many times there, but a really realistic image that we've taken from multiple photographs. All right, so yes, it does take a little bit of patience, a little bit of work just to get it right, which I'm not going to spend too much time on here, but you kind of get the point. And like I said, the cool thing is, if I screw up or I make a mistake, I can always bring back parts from the original picture. You can see that I can paint back the entire original picture because it's not actually lost, it's only hidden. All right, so make sure we save that. I'm going to just call mine Jungle. I'm going to save that. Okay. So what did we learn here? 3 different ways of making selections, 3 important ways, things that we're going to use throughout the course of the entire semester. Magic Wand, Quick Mask, and layer masking. 3 really useful techniques. I believe that each one of them kind of has their uses. And as you get better with Photoshop, you'll kind of figure out which one's the best for whatever situation you're in.